LinkedIn, Twitter. You can find the link in the chat to the Zoom session. You can join in there directly. Okay, so basically, Yogesh sir, how this works is the revision hackathons are a follow-up on the Rajiv sir's hackathon. So in your Teachable, you will have access to the modules that are explained thoroughly by Rajiv sir. What we will do is we are going to revise them, whatever has been told, and maybe a little more in detailed, right? So that is how it's there. So I would suggest, even if you get time after this session, you can go ahead and look at the module 1 in your Teachable, right? So it is named as Introduction to Python, NumPys and Pandas, right? So thank you so much, Yogesh sir. So others, anybody finished the first module of, I hope Vinita ma'am has finished. So Yogesh sir, I mean, there's you do not have to finish that also. Maybe you can understand this and do that. Anyway, the recording of this will be available there as well. Yeah, so that should not be a problem, right? Even if that is there. Okay. So Vinita ma'am, because you already progressed in module 4, I know that you finished module 1. So if at all we get stuck anywhere, so you can just help us out. Great. So let me share my screen. In the first revision hackathon, what we have done is we have gone till conditionals, right? So we'll pick up from conditionals. After conditionals, lists, loops, and then we will discuss NumPy and Pandas today. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so let me know if my screen is visible. Amazing. Okay, so we have covered till conditionals. So in conditionals, we have seen one particular function where the grade of students we have completed. So we have taken out the grade. So let me just show that. Post conditionals will just check in the lists, right? So what are lists? Okay, so for that, let me open Collab. So okay, sir, because this is the first lecture, you'll even understand about Collab more. But this is where we run our programs, right? So I'm going to create a new notebook. Okay, so when you create a new notebook, you go ahead and click on connect here. It is going to connect, right? So let's say revision on 2. Amazing. Now, so what we are going to do is pick up from our notes. So now you see what are lists. Lists is in our previous revision hackathon, we have seen that different types of variables, and those were integers, floats, and all the other variables. Now, what we are going to do is we are also going to understand about lists. Okay. So yeah, thank you so much, Yogesh sir. Oh, Yogesh sir, you're a Java developer. So basically, this is very early topics, so it will be easier for you, right? So how lists works is like this. So you give the list name and the item in the list, right? So for example, if you are giving in a string, you're going to put it like this. And your list syntax is done. So I'm going to say print list name. Okay, so request you to unmute. Okay. Now I'm just going to put parentheses before the print. You can see that we have created a list, right? In this list, there are 2 strings. Okay. So now once we understand lists, how we define lists, we have seen how to access strings by index. Similarly, we can access lists also by index, right? So for example, here we are creating a list which is numbers. The name of the list is numbers, and we have given 4 numbers in it, right? So if you're going to print numbers, you can see that sorry, S. You see that the numbers list got created. Here, what we are going to do, we are going to add the numbers at index 0 and 2, right? So we've just given a print statement here, and directly we are accessing by number, name of the list, and then a square bracket, then the index. So this is 0 and 2. So if we run this, so it will be 5 plus 7, it will be 12. So this is how you access by index. Similarly, the similar way we do in strings, right? Okay, so now how do we update values? It is also very simple. For example, here we have one particular list, which is zoo animals. So the zoo animals is the name of the list, and these are the items. Let's just say there are 4 animals in that particular list. Okay, so now when you say zoo animals 0, the first one is accessed out of there, right? So now this pangolin got identified, right? Okay, so now if you want to update or add more to that particular list, you can do it this way, right? So what I'm doing here, I'm going to say, because the 0, 1, 2, now 2 is sloth, I'm going to change sloth to hyena. So we'll see if it is getting inserted. Okay, so we have updated 2 from sloth to hyena, and I'm going to print zoo animals. Okay, so once we run it, then you see that the list got updated, right? So basically here what we have done, we have update a list, right? So this is what we do forward also while we go forward. So you update the lists by index and giving the new value, right? And there are a few functions within lists itself. Now you can see that here one of the functions that we see is append. Now you see there is one list which is letters, and in the letters have 3 characters A, B, and C, and in that I am going to use this function called append, right? So append is add to end. Now here if I say letters, the name of the list dot append, then it is going to add to the end. Now if I print letters, the list, name of the list, you can see that it will be 4 items in the list, right? So if you understood these small things about lists, type U in the chat box. Great. Okay, thank you so much, Prashant. Thank you, Vijay. Amazing. Thank you, Ramesh sir. Now, similarly, a small function, another one is length of letters. Now, what we are doing is when you write len of letters, it is going to also give the length of that particular list, right? So we have 4 elements, it is going to say 4, right? Only thing to remember is the index, the first index is 0, not 1. Okay, so similarly, there is something called the list slicing. Now what is list slicing is basically taking a portion of a list, right? So for example, we have this letters A to E, the list is there, and in that we are creating a new variable, right? So new variable here, this is also going to be a list, right? So now what we are going to do, we are going to say use the name of the first list and say 1 to 3, right? So basically, if you use this, there'll be the new list created, which is slice, and it will be a slice of the main list and it will be from 1 to 3. And if you see, the right index is excluded, right? So let us see what does that mean. Print slice run. So now you see, first element is B, the second element is C, right? So the third element is D, but the third is excluded. So it is, in a way, to understand, this is from 1 and 3 minus 1, right? So which is 2, 1 to 3. So what if I say 1 to 4, it will be first element, second element, third element, right? It will not print the fourth element because the right index is excluded, right? So this is called a slice of the primary list, and this is how you slice. You use this from and to index and make a slice of it. Okay, right? Yes, Yoga sir. So we'll understand the arrays portion also now once we get into NumPy. So we'll also differentiate that. Okay. So now similarly, if you leave the right index here without adding anything, it will take from 1 to till end, right? So if I'm going to run this, so it will take from 1 to the end of the list. For example, even if you have more elements, it's going to take till that end. Okay, so this is useful. Similarly, if you remove the first one and say till 5, so it will just go ahead and take from beginning till the fifth element, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it will take 5 elements and give it. Okay, so that is slicing. Now, so basically, what do we do in this particular section is, you can always insert. Now we have replaced, updated the value. Now what we are going to do is, we are going to insert between a particular string. Okay, so I'm going to say, right? So yeah, so now we have a list which is animals. It has 6 animals in it, right? In this list, what we are trying to understand is, what is the index of duck, right? So where is duck? So now how do we do that? Name of the list, and we say dot index and find duck, right? So this, what it will do, it'll say 0, 1, 2, save 2 in duck index, right? So now what we are doing, where there was a duck index which was 2, insert cobra there, right? So this is another animal there, we are adding there, right? So this is not like updating a list, this is more like insertion, right? So dot insert is helpful in inserting, and dot index is helpful in getting the index of that particular list, right? So if you see, where there was duck there, now the cobra got inserted, right? So this is how you insert within a list. Okay, so that is how we insert, and this will help us in maintaining the order, right? So now we'll also look at loops, for loops, in the next section. But for loops works hand in hand with lists, right? So how does this work? I'm going to say, okay, let's take this exercise. Okay, so I'm just going to say, use it. First, what we have done, we have created one list. The name of the list is start list. Okay, and then there is a square list. So what we are trying to do, we want squares of each of these numbers in the square list, the other list. Now what we have, this is an empty list currently, empty here, right? But now what we have done, we used for loop, then we have said number, right? So this number, you can, instead of number, you can use I or any other number. This is where the range within the range whatever we are giving. From there, the first index, the index is picked. For example, here we are saying start list is, we are writing in this particular end. So what this does is, in start list, in this particular list, the index is in the number variable, right? So the for will loop from each of the element. It will start from 0, right? So first, when the loop runs, the number will be 0, and the index will be 0, and the number taken is 5, right? So what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to also print number, so you'll know what the number was. Okay, so whatever number it is coming, it is going to pick that particular number. Now what we have to do, we have to take the second list, which is square underscore list. In that, we are going to add the square of that particular number. So now when you say star star, it is the power, number power 2, or instead you can say number into number, even that is also fine. So first it will take 5, and in square list it will add 5 into 5. Okay, so now I'm going to print this particular list. We are also using this function on a list which is called sort, right? So it is going to sort in an order, increasing order here. Okay, so let us try running. So first, when the loop started running, initially it took 5, the number was 5, and that was added to square underscore list, and 3, 1, 2, 9, all the squares got added. And after the loop ended, so when the loop ends, when the number of items in the list get exhausted, so once it reaches the end of that particular list, the for loop exits, and then we are going to print the sorted order of that particular list. So if I'm going to print here before sorting, so it will be in the same order. 5 square will be 25, 9, 1, 4, and 16. So let us try running that. Okay, so the first early, the list was this, then the sort function ran, and then we have printed the sorted list. Okay, so this is how we have used dot sort on list. We've used dot index and dot insert, dot append on lists. These are the list functions. Okay, so the methods also, you can even call them methods, right? So this is how we have used for loop in combination of list. Now we'll understand the for loop in detail once in our next section. So how many of you understood lists, right? If you understood list, type L in the chat box. Okay, thank you so much, Ramesh sir. Right, so you have understood list. So list is nothing but a set of variables that could be a set of values, which could be strings or numbers. Okay, so thank you so much, Ramesh sir. Now what we are going to do, we are going to go for keys and dictionaries. Okay, so what is a dictionary? Dictionary is very similar to lists, but here you can even search by key. Okay, so let me first run a program. So our mode of learning in hackathons is learn by exercise. So we'll be doing the exercise, and then and while we are doing it, we learn. So now you see what we are doing here is here when we are creating a list, we are using square brackets. But when we are doing a dictionary, what we are doing? We are doing a flower bracket, and the first we have the key. Let's just say puffin. Okay, so now we have written puffin here. This is the key, and this is the value. Okay, so instead of trying to access by index, you can access by key, right? Key as in, so now if you do not know if 105 is in second key or third key, third index or something, you can identify by key. Okay, so let me, sure, Ramesh. So this is how we do. So Ramesh says, I'm a student here. Great. That's nice. So now what we're doing here is creating a dictionary, and the dictionary has a key and value. So key value pairs are there in this particular dictionary. Now I am going to print the first value, right? Instead of saying 0, I'm going to say, because many times what happens is you do not know, you know the key. Like for example, in a literal dictionary also, you do not know on which page, a definition of only is there, right? So you go into the order, go ONLY, right? So you find by key, right? So then the whatever definition is there, the definition is there in the value. Okay, so here also what we are doing, what is there in against puffin, we are going to get using this particular syntax, right? So 104 comes, right? Similarly, you can save a lot of addresses also. Like for example, address of Sachi is Hyderabad, address of Ramesh is so and so city. So you can say that, like, so then the city of Sachi, and it will give you that particular value. So that is how this becomes helpful. Okay, so now that is dictionaries. In that dictionaries, how can you add new value? So this also becomes helpful when we are learning the other sections in the numpy insertions or there also. So this addition is important. So first we are creating an empty dictionary, right? So we have created an empty dictionary. Then we added to that menu first the key here is chicken, and then add new key value pair. So we have added the price against chicken is, let's say, 14.50. Then similarly, you went ahead and said in that menu added soup. The price of the soup is 6.50, egg 2.50, snack 1.50. Okay, so now when you print let's just say only menu, it's going to print the whole menu. Okay, but if you want to print only call what is the price in the menu for chicken, you can search by chicken. You do not have to know in what index chicken is there, right? So you can just go ahead, run it. It'll say 14.5 is the price against that particular menu item. Okay, so that is how dictionaries work. Similarly, you can delete from a dictionary also, right? So how do you now basically in new, how do you insert a new item was this way, right? So when you add the name of the dictionary, square brackets, the key and value equal to value, so this particular new item gets added to that particular list. So how do you remove is also simple. You can use this particular notation, del, the list name and that particular key. Okay, so I'm going to say del and say menu, like let's say menu chicken, right? So now print menu once again. Just going to run it, see if we have run into. Okay, so now the chicken has been removed, right? So the menu has become a little vegetarian. Okay, so you can use menu, the key in the square brackets and the value to add, and the key del for delete, right? So how many of you understood dictionaries, right? Type D in the chat box. Thank you, Vishal. Thank you, Sujit. Thank you, Prasad. Okay. So people who are on our social channels and are willing to add, any of your learnings, go ahead in the comment section and add the your top learnings. Okay. Thank you so much. Great. So now in lists, we have understood how to add and remove, right? So there is something in lists, you can have various different types of values, right? So now we have in dictionary, in this particular dictionary, if you look at, let me show it by exercise. We are creating a new dictionary, and in this dictionary, the open which opens with the flower bracket. Then the first key is fish, and against that we have given a list, right? The second one is cash, and in that there is a integer. In the next key we have another string, right? So you can see that this particular dictionary has mixed values, right? So let me put it all here. Okay, so you can see the keys and values are all not of same data type, right? To run it, right? So this is what is called a mixed dictionary, right? Okay, thank you, Prashant. So now we've understood the removing, addition, what is list, what is a dictionary, what is the length, how you can find the length, how you can slice lists, from one particular element to other element, how you can sort them, how you can use for loops in lists to, go from beginning of that particular list to the end, right? So how many of you understood the lists and dictionaries? So we'll be using lists and dictionaries more going forward. This is to give you an understanding of the syntax and how these items perform or per function, right? So if you've understood the lists and dictionaries, type LD in chat box. Thank you, Roshni. Great. Yeah, thanks, Ramesh. Okay, so now once you understand lists, we'll go for loops. Okay, so now how loops function, we right now we'll do it by exercise. Okay, so before that, let me just say loops. Okay. Now here, the exercise here is, first we have initialized a variable which is count, and then we are running, if we are using a if function conditional like we have used in the last exercise, last session, you can see that it will only run once whenever the condition is true, right? But if you want to run it in a recurring fashion, that is where we use loops. Okay, so I'm going to come here and say while count is less than 5. This is the condition, like how we had condition in if statements. Here what will happen is the condition is there the same, but the key whatever we are using a while instead of if. Okay, and then we are printing a similar statement, hello, I am a while, and the count is whatever the count is that particular run. Okay, so if it is 0, because we will starting from 0, then it will be 0 first, then because it is still true, the loop is still true, it will go for 1 is less than 5, and then it will print that particular statement again, right? So this particular variable we are incrementing every time, right? So in our first revision hackathon, we have seen the shorthand notation for incrementing. So this is increment. But for example, if at all you are using a function which is like count greater than, you have to decrement this, right? So you have to update the counter. What happens is if if you do not have an end condition logic for the loop, it will run into an infinite loop, right? So for example, if it is, first let us run for less than 5, then we'll see the loop. Okay, so now you can see the if statement ran here. Hello, I am an if statement, and the count is whatever the count is there at this moment. Okay, so let's print it here. So let's just say the variable here is count. Great. Okay, so okay, we have a double parenthesis. Sorry, my bad. So now what happens is, first it'll print the string and then it'll print the count. I'm going to run this. So first it says the count is 0, and then the if statement stopped because the condition ran. There's no loop here. But in while, I am a while, and the count is from 0 till 4, because 4 is less than 5. It will still print, but once it becomes 5, 5 is less than 5. This will be false, and then that is when the statement will not run. It will come out of the loop, right? So that is where the loop got exited, right? So this is how while loops are useful. In while loops, this is the condition, and in the condition you can run a block of code. Here we have run just the print, but here is where your code comes, and this keeps running until the loop condition is true, and you have an increment every time. If you are using a function that requires incrementing, once the condition is false, you know that the logic will run out of that particular loop. Okay, then the loop will end, right? So this is a while loop, right? So we use more of a for loop, but it is helpful in understanding the logic of while, right? So it is how is there. So while and for loop work in the same fashion, but for loop has a simpler syntax. You do not have to increment separately, right? So that is where we'll see while for also. Okay. So how many of you understood while loop, right? Type W in the chat box. Yes, thank you, Prasad. Thank you, Ramesh. So now what happens in while is there's another statement where we call else, right? So for example, we are going to, let's just say, run another function, another exercise. So here what we are doing is we are importing a module which is random, and we are printing two statements. The lucky number, the 3 numbers will be generated. So we are creating a logic which will generate 3 random numbers. If one of them is 5, you lose, right? So basically, that is the logic of that particular small game we are doing. So let's just say the count is 0. We are initializing the counter to 0. While count is less than 3, generate random numbers from 1 to 6. So how do we do that? We have created a number, and we have used random, a function from random module, random.randint. So it will generate random numbers from 1 to 6. Then we are going to print number also, right? So to know what number got printed, right? Now we are going to check the game here is, if it is 5, then the person who is running it will lose, right? If it is not, he wins, he or she wins. Now we're going to print that particular number, and then we are going to do a check, because we've learned conditionals also. We are going to check if the number equal to 5. So if from 1 to 6, 3 numbers, if any of the number generated is 5, the human loses, else he or she wins, right? So you use else in the same line while there is while. Okay, so wherever we have while, so you not have to indent else, right? So it will be in the same particular line. Okay, so now we are going to run this. We are generating three numbers. The first number was 4, the second number was 5. Then what happened? Once we have the number is 5, we have used something called a break statement. Right? So break forces exit from the loop. Right? So we need not have to run it once again because the game is over, right? So the person, the human, loses. So this is where we have understood, like whenever the condition is not true, you win, right? So we'll try to run it again and see if now 6, 3, 4. So 5 was not generated and we win, right? So that is how the loop ran 3 times and it could not find the match for that condition, and it went into the else statement and printed the else block, right? So how many of you understood while and else, how we are using while in combination with else, right? Type U in the chat box. So we use break statements to force the exit from the loop, right? Thank you, Sham. Thank you, Sujit. People who are watching us on YouTube, you can summarize your learning on comments, or you can type U in the chat box. Okay, great. So now this is how we have understood a little about while and else. Now we'll just understand why for loops. For loops is pretty simple. So now what we are going to do here is, to understand the syntax of for loop, we are going to do a small exercise. So now what we are going to do, we are going to use the statement for I in range of 20, right? So now range of 20 here is the list, right? It's getting generated. So let me first print range of 20. So if I print range of 20, so, oh, sorry. Okay, so it is going to print a range from 0 to 20, right? So now what we are going to do is, this is a list which is starting from 0 till 20. That's what we have understood. Now we are initializing the variable where one element each time is picked up, right? So from 0, first it will pick 0 and then it will print 0, right? So let me run this. So how this ran is, first in that particular range, it picked 0 and then printed 0. Then it went self increments. So in for loops, you do not have to write increment statement like how we did in while, right? So it auto increments and goes next, picks up the next item and prints that particular item here, right? So from 0 to 19, the range generates from 0 to 19. So because it will generate 20 elements, 20 items, right? So this will be the end, the number that is given is excluded, right? So for loop starts from the beginning element of that particular list and goes till the end of it, right? So similarly, once we understand for loop, the syntax of it, it is easier for us to navigate through lists also, right? For example, we're going to use this with strings. Now we have created one variable which is a string variable. In that we have given the word carrot with an exclamation, right? So we have created a variable C. In that particular string, it is going to print every character one at a time, right? Okay, so let's just say print this. Okay, so if I'm going to print it, it will pick each item. It will pick the first index item and then print it, then go till the end, right? So you can use for loop in combination of strings that we have seen, but for loop, the syntax is very simple. Here, you will be picking up one item from the list or the range from beginning till end, and then you run a block of function, block of code. Okay, so this is for, and even for also you can go ahead and use else. Similarly, what it does is whenever the condition for is false, or if you use a break statement, for example, in this particular statement we are running, so there is the list. The list is a list of fruits, banana till grape, and in this list, first we are picking up the first item from the fruits list, which is banana, and whenever the fruit is tomato, it is going to print tomato. Tomato is not a fruit. Okay, so it will print tomato is not a fruit, and then it will break, right? So when it breaks, it's going to print the name of that particular fruit. Okay, so it is first going to run. Whenever it is going to break, it will come into the else block, right? For example, let's first run it. Now if you see, you have a banana, orange, pear. So you've reached, whenever you have hit tomato, it did not go till grape because the loop broke whenever it came across a break statement, right? So for example, what happens if there's no tomato, it's going to print the list of fruits, because if here that particular fruit is also getting printed. Okay, so I'm going to remove tomato, if because the condition will never execute, it will directly go into the else statement, right? So now you can see that it ran and it could not find tomato, and then it printed the condition not came in, it became false. Then it will go into the else statement and will execute when the condition is false, right? So the condition was false, then it is going to execute the else statement, right? So that is how you can use else in combination with for and break, right? So how many of you understood the for else also? So you understood for, so you can if you understood for in combination of else, type U in the chat box. People who are watching us on YouTube can type your views in the comment section. Thank you so much, Ramesh. Okay, so now this is for loops. So these are like the basics of Python, right? So once you understand the basics of the loops also, it becomes very easy. You can even loop use with the dictionaries. You can even do that, right? So how do you loop in dictionaries? Here, instead of range or the variable, you can directly write the key, right? So whenever, let us first run this and understand, and loops will all be done, right? So there is a dictionary which is having 3 key pair values for whenever there is the key, for whenever it is X, it'll be pick the first key. If the value, in that particular key is 10, this dictionary has value 10, right? So basically we are finding something in the dictionary. Okay, so how we are doing that? First, it will pick each key. So I'm going to print key also. Okay, so you'll know what is there in that particular state. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I think there is some error it shows. Let us run and see what was there. What's the error? Okay, indentation. Okay, so it is not indented properly. Okay. Indentation is very important. That is when we know what block is under what block, right? So now you can see that here the dictionary is there, which has 3 key pair values. For the key in D, you can see that we're going to print the key, and then whenever the key value, right? So name of the list and key equal to 10, then we are going to say we found 10, right? So I'm going to run this. Now first, the key was x was not equal to 10. This statement did not run. Y, and whenever it came across y, d of y was 10, and we found 10, right? So the statement printed was this dictionary has a value 10, right? So you can find values in a dictionary using the for loop and if in combination, right? So this is how you can even loop in dictionaries also. So you looped in lists, you looped in strings, you can even loop with dictionaries, right? So yeah, thank you so much, Roshni, for typing U. So I hope everybody's understood loops also, right? So now if you've understood loops, so this actually is the end of the introduction to Python, the basics, the fundamentals, right? But now we're going to learn a little about a little more advanced topic, which is NumPy. So how many of you finished the NumPy section of Rajesh's lectures, right? So if you've finished NumPy and pandas, type me in the chat box. Yes, that's great, Sham. Okay, so people who have joined late, how the hackathons run is we cover whatever Rajiv sir has covered in his lectures, and this is going to be a revision, right? So here you can revise whatever you have learned. Okay, so now what we are going to do, we are going to use whatever statements we have run in Rajesh's lecture, right? If you want to go in detail, you can definitely go follow whatever Rajesh's lecture was there. But now we'll go forward and learn about NumPy. Okay, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring our program. Okay, we are here. Okay, so you found, let me share my screen. Great, right? So the NumPy and pandas. So how do you do that? So in the first module, we see that Rajesh sir also covers how if and else works, how you can see if the number is greater than 0, it is positive, else the result is negative. So you can go ahead and go through, follow Rajesh sir's lecture also, or else you can even continue understanding what we are doing here, right? So Rajiv sir also uses this particular statement, which is for in combination with the range. So now we have used a range of, like, let's just say 20, right? So now what you can do, you can evenly space it this way. So the first here in this particular syntax, the first element is 25 and go till 0, right? From 25 to 0, and then you are decrementing by a value of 2, right? So 25, 23, and it'll come to 1, right? So this is how you can increment or decrement. For example, if you want to go from 0 to 10 increments of 2, so you can go ahead and do that. So it's going to print I. Okay, so it's from 0 to 8, it's going to run, right? So that is how the range, the start, stop, and the increment or decrement happens in for loop. Also you can use in combination with range, right? So now to understand NumPy, like how we have imported random the module, similarly we are going to import NumPy. And now NumPy as NP means NP is nothing but here a nickname kind of a thing that we have given, right? So pseudonym we have given for for our particular use, right? Or else you can even write numpy as numpy when we are using, right? So first we'll understand why we are going to use numpy. Okay. Now here we are going to create one particular function, right? So the function here is, let's say, let's come from the beginning, becomes easier for understanding. So now we're learning by exercise. Here, this is the header in function. Okay, so the name of the function is list version, and size of array is the parameter that we are passing, right? So for example, whenever we do a function call, for example, if the size, we can pass 1000 also, so it is going to take 1000 and pass it within the function, right? So for here, what we are going to do is, first I'll explain the function. Here we are running a creating variable, which is a, and we are going to generate a list using the range function, right? So it is start from 0 till, for example, if you are passing 1000, a will have the list of elements from 0 to 1000, right? If you are going to pass 5000, a will have list of 0 to 5000. Now b is also a range of same number, right? Now c we have created is 0, right? So basically we have created another initialize another variable, and we have given it the initial value 0. Now we have run a for loop for I in range length of a. What this does is, for example, length of the list a, if it is 10, it will run from 0 to 10. Like when we pass 20, that is how it ran, right? So it is run from 0 till 10, or whatever the length is there. For example, if we are going to pass 1000, it is going to take from 0 to 1000. Now whenever it is 1000, what we are doing, we are making the list C and adding. So we are, by giving square brackets, we are telling that this is also going to be a list, and here we are going to add the first index in A and then B, right? If it is 1 and 1 in that particular list, it's going to C is going to be 1 plus 1, and we are doing it for I in the same range, right? So in the range that we have given, right? Then what we are going to do, we are going to return something called the time it took for running that particular statement. Okay, so we created a variable called time, and we have imported the module time so that we can know what is the current time. Like for example, when before running the program, we are saving the value of current time in t, right? So let me first run this and show t is equal to time. Now this will give something called an epoch value in time. You don't have to remember this. This is just helpful. Time value. Okay, this will not be like our current time, right? So I'm going to print t. Okay, so if I'm going to run this, so this is the time. Okay, so now for example, after some time, now the program ran. So now it was like 537. If you're going to run it again, it'll be 548. Okay, so now it increased, right? So whenever you keep running, the time gets updated. So we are running the time before, we are saving the time of before the program ran, and after the program has ran, what we are doing, the time that it took at that, whatever the time is there, that particular time minus the initial time. For example, we started running the time, the program at 10, and at 11, after 1 minute or 1 second, what we have done, we have removed the current time minus the time it was there in the beginning, right? So 11 minus t. Okay, so because it was 10 back before we ran, right? So it will give us 11 minus 10, because now it is 11, then we'll give 1, right? So that is where we'll know how much time this particular program ran. Okay, so how many of you are clear with what we have done, what we're trying to do here? We are trying to make a function. In that function, we are going to initialize a variable called time, and we are towards the end, we are going to see how much time it took for us to run that particular function, right? So if you understood this, type U in the chat box. Thanks, Vijay. Okay. Thanks, Sham. So if you have not understood, type N in the chat box so we can explain that. Okay, so everybody understood, right? So similarly, we are now creating a NumPy version. So how we are going to do it? So we are going to say, we are taking the time before running the program. Then we are creating two variables like how we have created here, and we are using a function called arrange, right? So what arrange does in NumPy is something similar to a range only, but it will start from 0 till whatever the size we are giving, right? So this will also be in the same fashion, right? So here we are using for loop in the first list version, because in list you have to add first element with first element. But in NumPy, you can directly say a plus b, and it is going to add the first element with the first element of b, right? So now again, we are going to return the time it took to run that particular version. Okay, so now if you see here a little simplification has happened by using NumPy. You do not have to use for loop, right? Because when you say c equal to a plus b, it's going to add item to item. Okay, so here what we have done is, as we have initialized here NumPy as np, here we are going to run np dot arrange the functions in that particular module, right? Here you can even write NumPy, but to make it easier, we're going to run it as np, because we have initialized it as np. Okay, so now I'm going to run this also. Now I'm going to run the list version also, right? So now the program knows there are two functions. One is the list version, and then the other one is the NumPy version, right? So now we have created we are saying the size of the array is 1000, and we are going to run the time taken using this particular list, right? And using the NumPy. And what we are going to do, we are going to call that particular function by passing the size of the array. Okay, so I'm going to run this. You can see the same thing that even Professor Rajiv has done. He's also done this in his exercise. You can even go through Rajiv's exercise also, right? So the size of the array is 1000, and when the list version took 1000, it came here and it printed 0 to 1000 and b0 to 1000, started adding 0 with 0, 1 to 1, and everything got added like that. To run that, it took 0.27 seconds. But by the same thing we have done with NumPy, and it almost just took 0.00. And if you look at even the next numbers, then it took 0.0005. Okay, it is in that degree efficient than a list version. So that is where we use NumPy. So now this explains us like how NumPy is saving our computational power, right? So instead of using just lists, we use NumPy, right? So like, for example, we are going to pass let's just say 10,000 in the size of the array. First, the list version will take 10,000 and keep adding element to element. And the NumPy version also will take 10,000 and it'll add element to element. Then this particular statements will give how much time the list version took and how much time the NumPy version took, right? So it's going to take a little time because we've given more numbers right now. So it's adding each of the numbers. So now you can see that the time taken using list, which is the maximum amount of time, it took 29 seconds. But the NumPy statement ran in almost 0.01 seconds, right? So you can see that how efficient NumPy is. It's not even 1 second. It is 0.001 second. So how many of you understood that we use NumPy because it is computationally lighter and efficient? Right? If you understood why we use NumPy, type U in the chat box. Thank you, Rajavi. Thank you, Sojanya. Okay, so if you understood this, the people who are watching on YouTube, you can type in the chat box U. Great. So that is why we use NumPy over lists, because it is times efficient than list. Okay. So similarly, like how we have seen in lists, whenever we use a range of 10 and 10, the lists are appended. Like for example, X is a list from 0 to 10, Y is a list from 0 to 10. These both are getting added. So 0 to 9 and 0 to 9 get added. But in NumPy, it is 0 for 0, 1 for, like, every element gets added with the other element, right? So that is the difference between the range with lists and a range in NumPy, right? So now if you look at understanding arrays also, right? When the output is array. So now Yogi sir, you've asked what is the difference between, how do we know the difference between array? So now if you look at strings, the string is directly gets printed. But when you create an array, that is, how do you create an array? Like for example, here we have imported NumPy as NP, and then let's say first create a variable A, and we, instead of arrange is basically a sequence of numbers. Array is what we have to input, what numbers we want, right? So now the first variable has 42, which was added into that particular array. Then we had one row, which is 1 till 5, right? So now b equal to NumPy's array function runs and creates from 1 to 5, right? So once you run this, you can see that, okay, that we are going to print first A, then run this. So, and it is 42 is one element in that particular array. And if I'm going to run B, it is going to be the second array. Now, what happens if you want bigger arrays, right? A 2 by 2 array, 2 by 2 as in there is X and Y, there's rows and columns, right? So now if I'm going to run this and print the new array, is going to come in this particular fashion. The first row, the second row, and you can see that this is in kind of a rows and columns kind of a fashion, right? Similarly with you want to create a depth also to it, not just length and width, then you create in this particular fashion. First you give a 2D array and then you close it, then you give another 2D array, right? So this is one particular array. When you give a comma, it becomes a 2D array, And when you give a comma between arrays, it becomes, a 3-dimensional. So when I run this and print D, you can see that the first array is 1 to 3 the first row and 4 to 6 the second row, and the next array is beneath it, right? So it's a 3-dimensional one, right? So this, if it was only 1 to 3, it is just one single row, which is 1D array. When you have two columns in it, two rows in it, it has become a 2D array. When you have another layer, it has become a 3-dimensional array, right? So now how do you know what is the dimension of that particular array? So you use the function with the array dot in dimension, right? So when you run this, you'll know that this is the array and this is the dimension in that particular array. So this is a 3-dimensional array, right? So how many of you understood what is a 3-dimensional array and how do you use arrays in NumPy, right? Type U in the chat box. Yes, thank you so much, Ramesh. Right? So we'll further use these concepts, but the challenge with arrays is you normally work with tables, right? So for example, if you want to create a table, I'm just going to give you as an example. Now we are going to create a table, let's just say calories, and we are going to say the duration. This is a random table, right? So then the first row, second row, and third row, like, let's just say something like that. And you're going to say, the first item has 420 calories and the time, duration in which this was consumed is 50 seconds, right? Similarly, you have two rows additionally. So this is a table, right? Okay. So let's just say 540, 20 seconds, and then say 230 calories in 60 seconds or minutes, whatever it is there. Now what happens is this is a table. Now in a way, this is also an array, right? So now 420, this is a 2D array, right? 3 rows, 2 columns. But working with arrays is complex because many times in Python, because we are going to open up our data science concepts also in the next hackathons, you'll have to work with tables or large CSV files or other databases. So it is very difficult to use arrays to do your operations. So that is where we bring in pandas, right? So what we do in pandas is similarly how we have imported NumPy as NP. Now we are importing pandas as PD, right? So here, like how we did for dictionaries, we are going to do data is equal to flower brackets we have opened, then say calories. Now calories will become the column, right? So this is the column, right? And then we are going to say it has 3 items in it, 420, 380, 390. Duration is the next column. And then you're going to have 3 values in it. Okay. So how we are going to make it into a table. So a table in pandas is called data frame, right? So basically we're going to create a data frame basically in a simple understanding. So we're going to create a table. In this data frame, we are going to use the data frame D and F capital, the function for in the pandas, right? And whatever data we have created, right? So for example, you have created this in this particular dictionary, you have created data. So you're going to print that particular data here. Okay, so I'm going to run this. So now you can see that in arrays in NumPy, it was tough to work and visualize this in a table format. But in pandas, it became a little easier because the look and feel is more like a table and you have a column heading, and you also have the index of that particular row, right? So this is a data frame which very much looks like your table, right? So how many of you agree that the pandas data frame looks very similar to a table, right? So type A in the chat box. Yes. Thank you, Santosh. Thank you, Rachna. Thank you, Ramesh. So this is how you use pandas, right? So for loop, if loop, if condition, all these things are common in multiple languages, but NumPy is something that is in Python, used in Python, and originally this is a in a module in C, right? So Python has taken it from C. Now NumPy is also there in C language as well, right? So this module has the definition as we have in C, and it was developed over that, right? So for and if and all those things, the concepts are there in C and Python, and NumPy is there, but you can understand how it makes our lives easy, okay? Now, here in tables, what do you do? To add a new column, you directly type in. But in a data frame using pandas, how can you add a new column, right? So for example, we are going to say calories per minute, a new column. You're going to first, use this particular statement. On the left-hand side, you're going to say data frame, the object that you've created, the df. In that particular data frame, first you have name of that particular column, and then you're going to say calories per minute is calories by duration, right? So you are picking each value from calories. For example, 420, the duration is 50. You're going to add it here, calories per minute, 0, 1, 2. So all of the index, it gets created. So if I run it, when I print data frame, you can see that a new column got added here, right? So earlier it was only just 2 columns. Now we are able to add a new column, which is calories per minute, right? So how many of you understood how to add a column in pandas? Type me in the chat box. Thank you, Rachna. Thank you, Roshni. That's great, right? So that is how you, thank you, Ramesh. Now, if at all you want to remove a column, so how do? You use df.drop. This is the data frame object that you have created here. The load data into data frame object, right? Similarly, here remove from a data frame object, df.drop. So you're going to drop it by this particular statement. You are going to write the name of that particular column, and you're going to say axis equal to 1. So now axis means if it is 1, it is a column. If it is a 0, it means it's a row, right? So that is how, because we are trying to remove a column, it is going to say axis equal to 1, right? So now when we use a drop statement, what happens is this creates a new object and drops in that particular object, right? So if I run this statement, this is a new object. But if I print data frame again here, it will still have calories per minute, okay? Because whenever you use a drop statement, it is going to drop in a new data frame object. But for example, if at all you want to drop it in the same table or data frame, so you use something called in place, right? So if I'm going to say the name of the column and say this is axis equal to 1, which is says it is column, and write in place equal to true, in the same table it is going to drop that particular column, okay? So if I run it, you can see the latest data frame would have been dropped, right? So even in the data frame object itself, you have you are able to drop that particular column, right? Amazing. So now how do you add a column So add a row. So now here what we are going to do is we are going to use the syntax is like this: the data frame object dot loc. So in that particular location, in that particular index, we are going to pick. So now what is the index? For example, whenever you use length of the data frame object dot index, it will give you the length. For example, I'm going to run this. Okay, so let me first print length of this. Okay. Oh, so basically what happened here is the data frame object got created. There is no, because we have deleted calories, it is not able to find it again. So it is trying to delete it once again. So let me first remove this particular, comment this particular section. Right. So I'm going to comment it. Now I'm going to do the data frame is this. In this data frame, I'm going to say length of this data frame by saying dot index. Right. So now you can see that there are 3 rows in it. So length of data frame dot index will give 3 rows in that. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to say df dot loc. In that, length of df dot index is going to be 3. So now you have 3 index, like you have 3 rows in that particular data frame object. So it is df dot location in 3rd row. So basically add another one below that and give it the columns value is 110. Right? You do not have to mention the name of the columns here while insertion. You just have to give the index where you want to insert it. So if you want to add it till the end, to the end, you can use df.index because it will give the total amount and which becomes the last element, right? So now if I'm going to run this, it will add 100 calories and 10 in duration, right? If I run it, you can see that the 110 got added here. So this is how you add a row in your data frame. Okay. So how many of you understood how to add a row in data frame? Type me in the chat box. Yeah, so this particular collab file will be giving it to you so you can run it by yourself. Now we have to focus on understanding the concepts. So if you understood how to add a row in data frame, type me in the chat box. Thanks, Sham. Thanks, Vijay. Thanks, Roshni. Great. Right. So now, similarly, if you want to drop a particular row, similarly, first you give the index of that particular row. Okay. And then you are going to use 0 in access because that will say it is a row. We are saying in place because we want the updation happening in that particular statement itself, right? So we'll just check if this is running or not. Okay, so now here we are going to write 3 because we want to delete the index 3. Okay, so if I'm going to run it, you've seen that the data frame had the new row removed, right? So this is how we have added rows and columns into the data frame that we have created, right? So if you understood how to add rows and columns in a data frame, type RC in the chat box. Great. Thank you so much, Vaishnavi. Thank you, Raja. Thank you, Sham. Okay, so I would request all of you to go ahead and go through the next module of Rajiv sir, which will be the next lecture after module 1. And if at all you need any other help and all, we'll be joining again in our next session, right? In the next section, when we join, we'll be taking your doubts from the previous session and take up the new topics. Okay, I hope this revision hackathon was helpful in revising your concepts. And if at all you want to brush up your concepts even further, request you to rewatch Professor Rajiv's session. And if at all you're sure, you can go forward and watch the next module. Ramesh sir, you can unmute and say, sir. So how was your experience before and after? So is it possible for you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for this opportunity. I think this is the first time which I join. I don't have any very coding background or expertise on the Java. But I think the way you clarify, I think it is very simple. So it is easy to understand and grasp. I mean, definitely I'm going to start the other sessions, I mean module which you highlighted. So I have yet to start that very honestly. I joined just this is second day.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great.
Thanks.
So I suggest you go through the modules of Python also introduction. So I'll be sharing with you the the first hackathon we have done. It was also roughly a 90-minute hackathon where we have covered all the foundational topics of Python. But thank you so much, Ramesh sir. May I know from which city you are, sir?
I'm from Mumbai.
Mumbai, is it? What is your background currently?
I'm in IT, but not this. I work many years with the ERP, especially on the SAP part. Okay, but that is related to administration and the HANA part, not with the programming. I have little bit programming understanding, but not Python or Java. I mean, this is very first time which I
Sure,
started.
100%, sir. I request you to go through the next modules also. We are going to revise it. So this is how the pattern will go. You'll go through the module and we'll be doing a revision also. And this revision also is available in your Teachable so that you can go through it even later as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ramesh sir. Thank you, Vinita ma'am. Thanks, Sham, Vijay, Roshni, Raja, Prashant, Prasad. Thanks for everyone who's joined us on our social channels. If you like our session, you can go ahead and subscribe and like our channel as well. You can summarize your top 3 learnings in the comment section, right? So I'm going to drop our Trustpilot link. So in this Trustpilot link, you can leave your top 3 learnings or what was your result before and after that your session. Okay. So thank you so much, everyone. It was really lovely. Thank you so much, Ramesh sir, Vinita ma'am, Yogesh sir, Uday ma'am. Thank you so much for being here and helping us make it more interactive. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is it any slots has been fixed for this hackathon or is it on random basis?
Yes. So basically, these hackathons, AI hackathons, would be in the same time frame, 12 to 1, or the 90 minutes from there, 12 to 1:30, every alternative day, right?
Alternative days. Okay.
Correct. So we'll be sending the notification email also.
Perfect. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks, everyone.